Good morning. We continue to see something of a plateau in our state's daily coronavirus numbers. Experts telling us this week they expect Indiana to reach that peak in the coming days. This as the FDA meets to talk about boosters and as the conversation continues about the president's new COVID-19 mandates. More reaction from here in Indiana coming up. Meantime, in Washington, security concerns and another big rally, the so-called Justice for January 6th rally in the nation's capital over the weekend. Much more later this morning on Fox News Sunday and Face the Nation. But we start this morning at the Indiana State House in a process that plays out just once every 10 years. We're talking about redistricting with new maps that could change who will be on your ballot next time you go to vote. It's an issue we're taking a closer look at this morning, and we start with State House reporter Kristen Eskow looking at the impact here in Indiana.
The redistricting process helps determine who represents you in Congress and at the Indiana State House and plays a big role in shaping the future of Indiana politics. Now, these maps released are not the final maps, but they give us a look at what Indiana's congressional and state legislative districts could look like over the next 10 years.
If you have a child in kindergarten, that kid will have a driver's license likely by the time these maps are no longer used.
Julia Vaughn of Common Cause Indiana says that's one reason why maps like these will make a lasting impact. On the left side of your screen is the current congressional map, and on the right side of your screen is the map proposed by Indiana House Republicans. If this map is approved by the Indiana legislature, some of the biggest changes would impact Marion County. Northern Marion County would switch from Congresswoman Victoria Spartz's district to Congressman Andre Carson's district, and Southern Marion County would be in Representative Greg Pence's district.
My impression is that we are going to continue to have non-competitive congressional races here in Indiana.
If the 9 members of the congressional delegation decide to run for re-election, all 9 of them will be re-elected.
That's based on how people voted in 2020. Bill Morrow of the Indiana Citizen Education Foundation says that's not how it should be.
Fair maps would yield competitive races that might create a congressional delegation that was 6-3 or 5-4.
Nonpartisan experts I've spoken with also have concerns about the process being used to create the maps. State officials say they could get approval in the legislature in less than 3 weeks. Rima Shahid of Women for Change says that's not enough time.
Citizens were supposed to be kept informed along the way, and I don't think that has happened.
People are going to think what they want to think, but I think we can stand behind coming here presenting very maps that met the goals that we had. This is a challenging process, and not everybody's going to be pleased. You do the best you can.
That was Kristen Eskow reporting. You heard from Republican leaders there at the end of Kristen's report. Also this week, I spoke with the chairman of the Indiana Democratic Party, Mike Schmuhl. I want to get your response first to what we've seen at the State House this week when it comes to the redistricting process.
Yeah, I think that we obviously saw the maps a couple of days ago, and I think the word process is key. And I have been pretty clear, as have members of my party across the state, that it was an unfair and not a very transparent process at all. I think that we have seen over the last 10 years what poor redistricting has done for the Hoosier State, and it seems like the Indiana Republican Party is just really doubling down on that. They said that they would have public input and go around the state. They did sort of that, but they didn't take questions. It really felt like people were sort of there to drop little pieces of paper in a comment box, and that was about it. I'd also add, this was all done behind closed doors and done well in advance of the last couple of days. And so, they hired a DC GOP operative to kind of come in, kind of fix the system to their liking. And I think that that's unfair for Hoosiers.
This process, though, going back many years, has been under scrutiny. Going back to when Democrats were in charge of the process, wouldn't Democrats not seek to draw maps that would aim to maintain their advantage if they were in charge? Now, where do you draw the line here?
I think what we've seen, especially over the last decade, is that our politics has changed a lot. Media, campaigns, the extremism that we've seen. People really race to their own corners. And a lot of that has to do with not a lot of competition and not a lot of involvement in democracy, particularly Hoosier democracy. I think people sort of think on election day, does my vote really matter? And at the core issue, we need to show to Hoosier voters that it does. And I think that you provide that through more balance with both parties at every single level, federal, state, and local. Now, because of so many things that have changed in our politics, we have really advocated and pushed for an independent commission that would take the authority away from the political parties. We really believe that voters should pick their politicians and elected office holders, not the other way around.
I want to get your reaction also to Senator Braun and others in the party who've been critical of the president's new mandates for private businesses of a certain size to either get employees vaccinated or get tested on a regular basis.
I've been very clear on mandates from early on that when they come from the federal level or state level, generally they don't work. Regardless of whether it does or not, on its merits, mandates like this, I don't think are going to sit well with Hoosiers.
What's your response to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would tell him to look back in the not so distant history books. I think 2017, Mike Braun himself in the State House voted for a vaccine mandate for college students, I believe, with meningitis. The only thing that has changed, public health has not changed, but politics has. And I think that Mike Braun and other Indiana Republicans can't see past that partisanship when they're making decisions. Dan, we are over 50% for Hoosiers who have had both shots, and that's to be welcomed. But we have to get up to levels that are closer to 75% so we can reach that critical herd immunity. Myself, friends, family, folks that I talk to as I travel the state, we all want to get out of the pandemic. There's no question. And so I am for things that just get more people vaccinated and get people vaccinated quickly.
My interview there with Chairman Mike Schmoll. We're going to talk with GOP Chair Kyle Hupfer next week. Meantime, Senator Braun in a statement this week saying, quote, "We will not sit by as the president chips away at the liberty this country was built on. That's why we're formally challenging this rule now under the Congressional Review Act." President Biden has faced a lot of criticism from Republicans in recent weeks on vaccine mandates in the midst of this Delta surge and also on the situation in Afghanistan. All of that perhaps leading to sagging approval numbers in recent months. At the center of many of these situations the White House is facing, an Indianapolis native, President Biden's chief of staff, who was featured recently in an article from Insider's Adam Wren, Inside Ron Klain's Summer from Hell and How He Got Here. Adam joins us now with more. Indeed, Adam, after Afghanistan, the Delta variant, this has not been the summer of celebration the White House had been hoping for. What are you hearing about the chief of staff's role in everything that's transpired?
That's right, Dan. Well, I can tell you that Ron Klain, from sources in the White House that I spoke with, is drinking more Diet Coke than ever. He's sleeping less than ever before. He famously doesn't drink coffee, but does need caffeine to kind of deal with these crises that he's confronting along with Joe Biden. I can tell you that the White House wants to make the counsel that he's offering to the president, very private. But for all intents and purposes, we understand him to be one of the last people in the room with Joe Biden when he's making decisions like this.
A very involved chief of staff, from what you're hearing?
Absolutely, yeah. Republicans call him Prime Minister Klain. They sort of characterize him as the man behind the curtain, kind of pulling the strings. The White House rejects that and say that Biden is, chiefly in charge here, and that Klain is just a staff person. But this is a job that Klain has been working towards in many ways since he was, 7 years old here in Indianapolis when he first met Bobby Kennedy.
Yeah, North Central grad. You've profiled his days here in Indianapolis in your piece there in Insider. Meantime, a key Hoosier from the previous administration back in the news this week as well, talking about former Vice President Mike Pence, who was mentioned in the new Bob Woodward book, reportedly seeking advice ahead of January 6th from another Indiana VP, Dan Quayle, who reportedly told Pence, quote, "You have no flexibility on this. None, zero, forget it." Quite a series of quotes there in this new Woodward book about these two former Indiana vice presidents.
That's right. And of course, we don't know the exact source of that conversation with Woodward. It's a little sketchy, but we do know that Woodward has had a long relationship with Dan Quayle, writing a book about him back in the 90s, even in the late 80s. And so when you step back, what you really can draw the conclusion of is that Dan Quayle and Dan Coates are two Hoosiers who have really cooperated, it seems like, with Woodward, or at least people close in their orbit, to really kind of offering a not flattering portrait of former Vice President Mike Pence in two important Woodward books that we've seen over the last year.
A lot of Hoosiers also reacting to some of the news about General Milley in that book. Indiana, as always, playing an important role in national politics. That's why the newsletter Adam writes is called Importantville. Adam, thanks. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for being with us. Well, still ahead this Sunday in Focus, the former vice president among those who gathered in Logansport this week to remember a fallen Indiana Marine killed in Afghanistan. But up next, we'll talk with our panel about this redistricting battle at the State House, what it means for Hoosiers, and how things could play out in the coming months and years.